cars are rolled to the starting line, and once more, another page in the history of a great raceway is written.
Since the inception of the NASCAR Cup Series in 1949, there have been 36 different manufacturers to have competed in at least one Cup Series race, and as of this recording, there are only 3 in NASCAR's top divisions: Chevrolet, Ford, and Toyota. Now, one of the major talking points about NASCAR's future has been OEMs, and whenever you bring up that topic about any potential new manufacturer joining the sport, one brand always comes to mind. Yep, Dodge. Dodge is one of the most popular car brands not only in NASCAR, but in all of America. But their time in NASCAR hasn't been stable, to say the least. But why certainly the two parties you would think would be a match made in heaven. But in actuality, the relationship between the two is about as stable as marrying a Kardashian. Now, to understand Dodge's relationship with NASCAR, we have to go back. Like way back to 1953, NASCAR's 5th year running. At that time, cars were purely stock. Whatever you buy at the dealership is what you race with on Sunday. But over time, car manufacturers got more creative with how to prepare for upcoming races to outrace their competition. See, in today's NASCAR, everything is basically spec now, and you can't really make any changes besides a few adjustments. In its early years, however, NASCAR was on par with Formula One in terms of innovation and ingenuity, and there was no manufacturer better at pushing the limits at that time than Dodge. In 1962, with the help of engine builders Cotton Owens, Ray Nichols, Ray Fox, and Maurice Petty, converted old 1950s Hemi engines and converted them for modern racing. 2 years later, in 1964, they created the 426 Hemi engine. The Hemis were dangerously fast. While they were running in the 170 mph range, the Fords could only cap to the mid to high 160 mph range. The Hemis will go on to win 26 of the 62 races that year. But while they were fast, they were deemed too fast. The cars were too fast for the short tracks, and Ford won 11 of the next 15 races. As a result, NASCAR banned it for 1965, which also had Chrysler boycott the sport that year. The following year, 1966, Chrysler returned and was allowed to run its Hemi engine again and also introduce a new car, the Dodge Charger. While it sold great on the roads, it struggled on the racetrack, forcing them to update their car to rival the returning Ford. Innovation in NASCAR did not stop and reached its peak in the 1970s, spearheaded by one of the most iconic race cars in NASCAR history, the Dodge Charger Daytona. Any indication of stock car was thrown out the window, as this car was primarily built only for NASCAR, with its most signature look being the 23-inch tall stabilizer wing on the rear of the car. Dubbed the Aero Wars, with Dodge and its Charger Daytona, Plymouth and their Superbird, Ford and their Torino Talladega, and Mercury with their Cyclone spoiler. Cars were reaching speeds that were unheard of in that era, with Buddy Baker hitting 200 mph for the first time ever in a NASCAR car in a Dodge Daytona at Talladega in March of 1970. Between a larger, powerful engine and the aerodynamics, NASCAR took notice of the speeds. Following 1970, they banned the so-called aero cars, with engines bigger than 305 cubic inches. Part of the reason too was because the cars were straying away from the typical street cars people drove. NASCAR also demanded that vehicles to be raced must be available to the general public and sold through dealerships in a specific minimum numbers. For 1970, NASCAR raised the production requirement from 500 examples to 1 for every 2 manufacturers' dealers in the United States, thus making the Dodge Charger Daytona ending production after not even 2 years of existence. Dodge would end up winning the manufacturer's title in 1970 with their Dodge Daytona, and again in 1975. But not too long after, Dodge withdrew their factory support from NASCAR following the failure of the Dodge Magnum in 1985. Over the years, while Dodge focused on beating its competition on the roads, NASCAR was quickly beating its sports competitors week in and week out by the mid-90s. NASCAR was the fastest growing sport in America and the most watched sport in America after the NFL. It was evident that the two parties would cross once again. In 1999, Vice President of Dodge Marketing and big-time NASCAR fan Jim Julo saw how quickly NASCAR was growing and wanted Dodge to be a part of that success. So with the approval of their 3,000 Dodge dealers, the company was ready to get back into NASCAR racing. But they knew they needed to have someone that can help drive them to success. From 1993 to 1999, crew chief Ray Evernham was paired up with Jeff Gordon, and the two created one of the greatest driver-crew chief duos in NASCAR history, with the two winning 3 championships together and 47 Cup wins. but on September 10, 1999, Ray informed Jeff that he would be leaving the team at year's end to become a team owner and lead his new team under the Dodge banner, announcing Evernham Motorsports on October 14, 1999. Now, Dodge had an interesting motto, being, well, different. They approached NASCAR in a completely different way. You could argue that Dodge set the blueprint for how manufacturers work in NASCAR today. The company approached competing in NASCAR under a one-team concept, with Evernham Motorsports leading the charge with Petty Enterprises, Bill Davis Racing, Chip Ganassi Racing, and Melling Racing all prepared under the one-team concept for the countdown to compete in the 2001 NASCAR Winston Cup Series with their Dodge Intrepid. Dodge's return to NASCAR in 2001 began on fire by sweeping for the Daytona 500 with Bill Elliott on pole and Stacy Compton alongside. Dodge remained a force to be reckoned with throughout the year, primarily thanks to Sterling Marlin for Chip Ganassi Racing, who gave Dodge their first win since 1977 at Michigan in August of 2001. 2 weeks later, Ward Byrne would win the Southern 500 in a Dodge, and eventually Evernham Motorsports would earn their first win at Homestead, Miami, thanks to Bill Elliott, who snapped a 7-year winless drought of his own. Petty Enterprises, on the other hand, with their 3 drivers, was almost instantly miles behind the competition. Outside of a near win at Bristol from John Andretti, Petty Enterprises finished 31st and 43rd with their 2 drivers, Andretti and Kyle Petty, while Buckshot Jones was taken out of the car before the season even finished and was completed with multiple drivers. Petty Enterprises, just to sum up, would never be competitive. Outside of a few shining moments from Bobby Labonte in the 43 ride from 2006 to 2008, Petty Enterprises was always a backmarker team for Dodge. Melling Racing, meanwhile, had only one bright moment, and that was finishing 10th in the 2001 Daytona 500. It would be their only top 10 under the Dodge banner, and at the end of the 2002 season, Melling Racing will close its shop for good. As the years went on, Dodge continued to grow in their own unique way. In 2002, Ward Byrne won the Daytona 500, breaking a near 30-year drought for Dodge to win the big race. But while Melling Racing shut down and Petty Enterprises and even Bill Davis Racing tanked in performance, Dodge added a new powerhouse to their lineup. In 2003, Team Penske switched from Ford to Dodge, and with young shotgun Kasey Kahne replacing veteran Bill Elliott and veteran racer Jeremy Mayfield, Dodge seemed to be ready for the future for years to come. Mayfield won 2 races in the 19 ride between 2004 and 2005, qualifying for the chase in both seasons. Kasey Kahne, meanwhile, had an impressive rookie season in 2004 and won a series-high 6 races in 2006. Mayfield appeared to be having a career resurgence, with Kahne being dubbed as the next superstar of the sport. While at Penske, things were also looking great, with young gun Ryan Newman winning 8 races in their first year with Dodge in 2003. However, that would be their peak in terms of stability. In the summer of 2003, Dodge terminated his contract with Bill Davis Racing after discussions about the team fielding Toyotas in the 2004 Truck Series, and that Davis was leaking secrets to Toyota. Bill Davis Racing had built a prototype for Toyota's truck team to present to NASCAR, which Chrysler viewed as a breach of contract. Dodge proceeded to pull manufacturer support from Bill Davis Racing in October of 2003. While the team continued to run Dodges through 2006, they stopped running Dodge logos on their car that year after a district court judge in Detroit ruled in favor of Daimler Chrysler, requiring Davis to pay $6.5 million to the manufacturer in February of 2006. Davis switched to Toyota for 2007. Although there was a ruling against the team, Davis and Dodge settled out of court in November of 2006 with the terms not released. Not only that, but Dodge's parent company Daimler Chrysler was also having big money problems of their own. In the summer of 2003, the company warned investors in Wall Street that they were likely to show a $1.1 billion loss in the second quarter of that year. This will be an important note later on, so keep this in the back of your mind. Meanwhile, things weren't looking good at Evernham Motorsports. In 2006, while Kahne was having a breakout year winning 6 races, Jeremy Mayfield went from contending for top 10 in points to barely being inside the top 35 in points. Now, it makes sense in racing to have a good year one year and then the next year a not so good year, but not a drop off like this. Well, it had to do with Dodge's right-hand man, Ray Evernham. Ray, who was married at the time, had been spending a lot of time with the team's developmental driver, Aaron Crocker. But Jeremy knew that it was much more than an owner trying to help one of its drivers, but that Evernham was having an affair with Crocker and putting more of an emphasis on her than the team. As a way to change the narrative, according to Mayfield, he was given a bare bones team for the 2006 season. Basically the number 91 team, which was used for testing and used Mayfield as a scapegoat. Mayfield was released following the Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, with Evernham accusing him of intentionally crashing to drop the number 19 ride out of the top 35 in points. Elliott Sadler, who was released from Robert Yates Racing, would replace Mayfield the following week. But this was the beginning of the end for Dodge's lead team. In 2007, Evernham sold the majority share of his team to George Gillette, rebranding the three-car team to Gillette Evernham Motorsports. While Evernham stated that it was simply a business move so that he can focus on the racing aspects of the team, the transition did not prove effective on the racetrack. The 2007 season didn't go much better, not just for Evernham, but for Dodge as a whole. Kane had one of his worst seasons, finishing 19th in points, while Sadler and sophomore Evernham driver Scott Riggs finished 25th and 36th respectively in points. Chip Ganassi Racing's three cars also all finished outside the top 20 in points, with their only shining moment that year being Juan Pablo Montoya earning his maiden cup win at Sonoma. Only Penske was Dodge's saving grace. While Newman missed the chase, finishing 13th in points, Kurt Busch went to victory lane 2 times and finished 7th. So why the drop in performance? Well, blame Dodge and their car. In 2005, Dodge brought in a new car, introducing the Dodge Charger after running the Intrepid from 2001 to 2003. And kinda in 2004, but it wasn't a car model, just the Dodge RT, but it looked a lot like a Stratus. Anyways, we're getting off track. The point is, the Dodge Charger sucked. While it looked cool, it sucked. The unique snout of the Charger was horrendous in traffic and severely lacked in downforce, so much so that teams were electing to not use the Charger but instead run old Intrepid bodies as late as 2006. Obviously, Dodge was not happy about this at all and told all Dodge teams by 2007 to use its newest model or risk losing factory support. That same year, NASCAR unveiled the car of tomorrow, meaning all manufacturers had to create another new car. Dodge unveiled their car, the Dodge Avenger, which was also garbage. Can I just say this about Dodge? They are so good at branding and marketing in their commercials, but man, do they suck at building cars. Outside the Intrepid, every single new car they built has been awful. So much so that once again, when they revealed the Dodge Avenger, they abandoned it after 1 year and updated it again, this time rebranding it again as a Dodge Charger for 2008. But something else happened in 2008. What else happened that year?
1.7% here, a loss of 37 points or so. Apple shares are just getting hammered this morning.
We're down by between 3 and 4.5% generally across these markets. Let's talk about the speed with which we are watching this market deteriorate. We're red everywhere, essentially, down by 5%.
We're down over 16%. Dow at the same time has fallen about 18%.
The stock market is now down 21%.
Because we're now down 43%.
What in the world is happening on Wall Street?
Ah yes, the 2008 recession. It affected everyone, and NASCAR and its teams were not exempted from a radical change that was about to take place. Chip Ganassi had to downsize as a result of a lack of sponsorship, and Gillette Evernham Motorsports could no longer rely on their Dodge dealers' sponsorship and had to go get actual sponsors, with Budweiser taking over the 9 car and Best Buy taking over the 19. While Kasey Kahne had an improvement winning 2 races including the Coca-Cola 600, it was clear that Evernham himself wanted out of NASCAR ownership. In January of 2009, Gillette Evernham Motorsports merged with Richard Petty Motorsports, leaving Evernham himself basically out of the team despite a small stake still in the company. More changes with Dodge occurred, with Chip Ganassi, who joined with Dodge in 2001, would leave for Chevrolet in 2009. And remember when I said that even as far back as 2003, Chrysler was having money issues? Well, Chrysler themselves filed for bankruptcy in 2008 and halted payments to Richard Petty Motorsports. This affected its employees, payroll, and parts, so much so that the team switched to Ford in 2010. Within a few tumultuous years, the swift blows ended the foundation of Dodge's return. As bad as it all seemed, however, hinging hopes on Penske was not a bad option, though not optimal. Kurt Busch had established a home, although that didn't last too long, after a nasty departure from Roush, and Brad Keselowski was a rising phenom. Busch won 10 races from 2006 to 2011, and Keselowski himself broke through with 3 wins that year, his second full-time season. But in March of 2012, a stunning announcement was made when Penske announced they would be leaving Dodge for Ford in 2013, the first year the Gen 6 car would run. Dodge never saw the move coming and caught them off guard, even though they had already built their 2013 Dodge Charger, which, by the way, looked absolutely gorgeous. They still needed a top team to run it. Rumors have been circulating for a while that Dodge would be departing NASCAR, despite other rumors that Furniture Racing or Richard Petty Motorsports could switch to the brand. but they were almost saved by a famous racing name. Reports of Andretti Autosport, a team in the IndyCar series, was coming to NASCAR with Dodge and having Kurt Busch, who at that time was driving for Phoenix Racing in 2012, drive the DHL Dodge car. So much so that they almost bought a race shop prepping for the 2013 season. However, higher-ups at Dodge's parent company, now called Fiat Chrysler, shut that all down. And when the manufacturer was absent at a 2012 Gen 6 test at Martinsville Speedway, it was all but official that they would not return. However, Dodge would leave on top. Thanks to Brad Keselowski and Team Penske, they would deliver Dodge 5 wins, 13 top 5s, and 23 top 10s en route to Brad's first Cup championship, and it was Dodge's first title since 1975. However, after the 2012 Ford 400 at Homestead, Dodge would leave NASCAR at year's end. Since that year, Dodge has always been looked as a fan favorite to return as a series' 4th manufacturer. Rumors of a Dodge return get louder and wilder each year they are out. Richard Childress Racing, Stewart-Haas Racing, and most recently RFK Racing have been rumored to switch to Dodge. NASCAR's potential electric components or possible all-electric exhibition series fits right into the mold of Dodge's new focus on electric cars, which includes motorsports. Once again, however, those odds are really a long shot. In October of 2022, there were talks with Dodge re-entering NASCAR, but those talks stalled out and have focused solely on NHRA. I would equate Dodge's relationship to NASCAR like you with your girl best friend, that you both know would work great together, but when you try to make it work, you realize y'all are better off doing other things with other people. Now, could Dodge come back to NASCAR one day? I don't know. I would love nothing more than for them to come back, but when you look at their history together, maybe things are just best in the past. But thank you so much for watching this video on why Dodge's return to NASCAR failed. If you haven't already, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts on Dodge's return to NASCAR? And do you think that Dodge will return to NASCAR in the near future? Until next time, my name is Jett from MDK. Thanks for watching.